Hello and welcome to this video, and yes, we're in front of the bookshelves, but no, we are not doing a book video today. I thought I would take this opportunity to talk through my feelings of the first trimester of pregnancy. I have, however, picked possibly the gloomiest day to do this, so if the lighting goes weird, that's why. I have also had possibly one of the most frustrating days at work, so if I go off on a rant, that'll also be why. So currently when I'm filming, I am 19 weeks pregnant, so although you will have already seen it because of just the way that everything's jigged about, our scan is next week. Both excited and nervous and scared and all of that about that scan. But that again is for a whole other video, so I thought I'd talk through first trimester, how I found it, what I felt, etc, etc. Because wow, growing a human is difficult. If you can hear any weird noises, Jeff's just off shot here, so he might decide to make an appearance and or make a load of noise. Oh, that's a big stretch, Jeff. Thought we'd start at the beginning and, you know, why I did a pregnancy test, I guess. So we were in the Cotswolds, so again I'll link those videos up if you haven't seen that series. For our like 1 year wedding anniversary trip, we took Jeff with us. I was pretty sure that like partway through that I was gonna come on my period, so Jeffy, can you stop? Excuse me. So yeah, partway through that trip I was like convinced I was going to come on my period. I didn't, but I was still getting a load of the like period symptoms, so I still had a lot of cramping going on. Yeah, I mean the cramping was the main thing and I got that before my periods anyway, so the only reason I thought that yeah, maybe this isn't a period and this could be a pregnancy and a baby was that I was late, essentially. So I said to Pete the weekend after we came back from that I bought a pregnancy test. I hadn't intended on taking it until the following Friday because I thought I'll give myself another week. If I haven't come on my period, then I'll do the test. But throughout Monday at work, so Pete obviously goes out to his office, I am at home, I was getting more cramps and more things, and I was like, I can't do this. I need to know one way or the other what I'm working with here. So the first thing I said when he came home from work, other than, you know, hello, was we're gonna do that test today because I can't wait any longer. So we took Jeff for our normal walk, put the dinner on in the oven, and I went and did the test and then left it on the side, called Pete, and then we waited together. And then it came back, obviously, that I was pregnant. And we also got the digital one, so it said it very clearly and then gave us a week, so it was 2 to 3 weeks, which was a shock and all of that kind of stuff. So you may have heard us say that the first people we told were the holiday people. The Journey company who did our Greece holiday. Again, I'll link that up here if you're interested in that series, because we'd literally booked it at the weekend that I said to Pete, you know, I'm gonna order some pregnancy tests. We'd also booked that holiday and then had to be like, oh, by the way, is it all right? And as you know, it was all fine. So yeah, that was sort of the early symptoms and stuff. It was very confusing because for me, everything that I was experiencing could have been a period or a pregnancy, and especially that Monday where I was googling everything that I was feeling. I was like, is this pregnancy or a period? And like, oh, it's a sign of both. I'm like, really unhelpful. So that's why I just had to do the test. The other thing that everyone always asks is about morning sickness. I think I was probably quite lucky in that I barely experienced it. Obviously I didn't feel very good. It takes a lot out of you first trimester, and there was kind of nausea, but it sort of was manageable and it was fine and I could get on with things. It was only after we told everyone after the 12-week scan, so first trimester is, you know, 1 to 13 weeks wise, It was only after we told people on that 12-week mark that I actually got sick. So it was only week 12 and it was only for like 4 days in that. But like every day for the 4 days I was sick in the afternoon at some point, which really confused Pete because obviously it's known as morning sickness, and in films they're all like rushing to work and throwing up in bins and things, whereas for me, the afternoons were always the worst. I'd be alright in the mornings and then by the afternoon it would get to me. And so yeah, I'm glad that it was only for like 4 actual days that I was sick, because I do feel for women that have it throughout the 13 weeks or whatever, a bit longer sometimes, because it wouldn't have been fun at all. And obviously you're keeping it from people and it makes it harder and yada yada yada, but we'll come on to letting people know and things like that. So yeah, morning sickness, not really something I suffered from, but for me the main symptom was tiredness, but that seems really mild. Energy levels, fatigue, that kind of thing. So I'm naturally quite a sleepy person, but you know, I can normally make it through a day, but when it comes to like going to bed at night, I am tired. Whereas first trimester, not necessarily for the first couple of weeks. For the first couple of weeks I was like, I have literally no symptoms here, what's going on? Is everything okay? Like, has something gone wrong? Should I be feeling something? Why am I not feeling sick? Blah 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 blah. And then probably about week 5 or 6 the tiredness kicked in and I just couldn't make it through a day. Like, I had to have a nap. I couldn't make it through the day without sleeping. So at its worst, which was probably sort of weeks 10, 11, I would have to have like a 20-minute nap on my lunch break at work to get through the afternoon, and then as soon as I finished work I came upstairs and went to bed until Pete got home from work, so that probably would have been like a 45-minute nap, and then I was in bed by like 9. I just could not, I just did not have the energy, and I just couldn't make it through the day on just my night's sleep. And I was having full night's sleep as well, it's not like that was a struggle or anything. I was just really suffered with the tiredness and the energy levels and stuff, which on the whole was fine because we didn't have huge amounts of plans. But on the days that we had planned something to do, man, it knocked me out for days afterwards. I could really tell when I'd overdone it, and the sort of aftermath of that, it was like, it's just not worth it really. As I said, I was lucky that we didn't have much planned in, almost like we'd planned it, but we hadn't put much in the diary and stuff over those months. So it did mean that I could just sort of lay around. There was one Sunday afternoon, me and Pete were doing stuff on the computer. We were sat on the sofa looking, I don't know what we were doing, I can't remember. And I looked at him, I went, I'm gonna have to have a nap now. And within 5 minutes of me saying that, I'd moved over to the other sofa, laid down and fallen asleep. So it was instantaneous most of the time. Second trimester, I have got more energy and I can do more things, but it still is quite easy to tire me out. If I do too much, for example, the Life of Pi Davis Cup weekend, that was too much. For a few days after that, I've been very sleepy and stuff, so I do have to pace myself, which is a bit frustrating because I obviously want to be doing things and I want to be getting on with things, but I do also have to remember that I am growing a human. I've got to remember that, and it's very tiring work. There was a moment, and I can't remember what week it was, possibly 12, where I read to Pete what was happening to the baby at that point, and he went, no wonder you're tired then. It's like, yeah, thank you. There's a lot going on that we can't see. So yeah, that was my main symptom of first trimester, which, I mean, I would prefer that. I mean, it wasn't pleasant, but as I said, that's probably much easier to cope with than nausea and sickness and that kind of thing. So on one hand, as much as I didn't like it, I'm also grateful that that is sort of my main symptom. The other thing that I don't think many people talk about, because I guess it's a bit taboo, God, the bloat and the gas that you get, it was a lot. I won't say more than that, but it was a lot. I guess the other thing that a lot of people are always interested in are cravings and all of that kind of thing. Again, not something I particularly had. I'd heard loads of people be like, oh, all I wanted was fruit, so I made sure that we had some dried fruit, but it didn't really do anything for me. I was like, this is not hitting any spots here. So for me, very much savoury foods. So my snack of choice is a cream cracker, for instance, and that's very much sort of where I've been. Carbs, love a carb. The thing I've probably been enjoying most, and I've always enjoyed it, but like it really hits the spot, is a Marmite toast. Oh, it's just the thing of beauty at the moment. And there was nothing better than getting up after like a really nice sleep on the weekend this first trimester. Really lovely sleep, obviously waking up knackered because that's just what it was. Taking Jeff for a walk, going, I'm a bit sleepy now because I've you know, moved. Getting myself some Marmite toast, eating that, and then laying on the sofa with a book for like an hour and a half. It's just the perfect way to start the weekend. So yeah, the tiredness wasn't great, but the Marmite toast really hit the spot. The other thing that happened very early on, so just before the tiredness actually, so that's sort of weeks 3 to 5-ish. I can't remember exactly when these things happen because I'd never actually wrote it down, which maybe I should have done. But I don't know whether anyone, I'd certainly not heard of it until I mentioned it, and my mum was like, yeah, that happened to me. But the extreme hunger that I felt, like literally there was nothing that I could eat that would like stop me feeling hungry for those weeks. I was ravenous, and eating too much would then make me feel a bit ill. So I was like, well, how does this correlate? Because I'm absolutely starving, but if I eat too much then I'm gonna vomit. It was a very fine line, and to be honest, the only thing that satisfied that was pasta. I went on a real pasta kick. Like pretty much every meal me and Pete had in that sort of 2-week period had to either have pasta or some big carby element to it. So again, on the Winnie the Pooh video where we went for tapas, you'll notice we had a lot of carbs, and that was because I was in my massive carb phase. And even like potatoes and things were good, but they didn't sort it out quite as much as pasta did. I think Pete's a little bit disappointed that I'm out of my pasta phase. It did only last for like 2 weeks because he was enjoying it because he's a big pasta fan. But yeah, all I wanted was pasta. So we'd sit and write out our meal plan, and I'd be like, right, here are the 4 pasta dishes that I want. We can have 3 other meals for the week, kind of thing. But yeah, no, I hadn't heard of anybody talk about that extreme hunger, and it's the only way I can explain it. And it's probably the only, it's like the closest thing I've had to a craving, I guess. I mean, there have been a few times where I've thought about a food and gone, I really want that. And then normally, like if that would happen, it's like a fleeting, oh, I really fancy that. That's something I crave at the moment. But then you don't do anything about it and it goes, but it would just linger. So I had a thing for cream cheese one week. I was like, I really want a ham and cream cheese sandwich. We obviously didn't have it. And I was like, every day, I was like, I really want cream cheese. I really want cream cheese. So in the end we had to get that, and then I had it, and then that was satisfied. So I sort of get cravings in that for me, I sort of just fixate on it, I guess. I am not someone that has to send Pete out at like 3 a.m. because I just have to have a watermelon or something. But there have been foods where I've gone, I really want that. I really, really want that. And I've just not really thought about anything else other than wanting that food. That's what happened with the crackers, actually. When I was struggling to find my snack of choice, all I kept going was, oh, cracker would have been better there. So in the end, that's probably the only thing I have actually sent Pete to get, but it was on his way back from work. I was like, could you just pick up some crackers on your way back? So yeah, that's how I've been with food. I think, again, because I didn't have the nausea and the sickness, I didn't really have particular food aversions or anything like that. I just needed something savoury and carby. So I'm going to sort of link these two together. They kind of go together, but they kind of don't. And that is the feeling of knowing you're pregnant but not letting anyone else know. And then also sort of the anxiety that you get around pregnancy. I'll start with the latter first. So for me, am I an anxious person? I have my moments, probably. And certainly there's been, pregnancy probably has brought it out in me a little bit more. When we first found out I was pregnant, obviously it was like 2 to 3 weeks. You don't have your first appointment, I believe in the UK, or at least in our NHS trust, until 8 weeks. That feels like an incredibly long time to wait. And then you don't even have like a scan, you don't know if everything's okay. It's just a booking in appointment where they go through lots of like health questions and yada yada yada. So I was incredibly like nervous, anxious leading up to that, and hoping, you know, that everything was okay and everything would be okay. I'd say after that 8-week appointment, the midwife put me at ease a bit at that point. There were things that I could start looking into, which always helps me if I've got like a task I can do. But then the anxiety obviously built up a bit again ahead of the 12-week scan, because that's when I would actually, you know, see our child, our baby, and make sure that things are progressing nicely. And obviously next week we've got the 20-week, and again my anxiety is building up a bit. I'm a little bit concerned that I don't think I've felt the baby, but then I don't really know what I'm looking for or feeling for. But again, I will save that for a similar one about the second trimester. But yeah, so I find that when there's like a weird twinge, less so now, but certainly at the beginning, cramping has been something that I have had throughout both first and second trimester, and every time like I'm a bit like, oh, is everything okay? But then obviously the apps and things like that say that it's a common symptom and this is why it's happening and yada yada yada, which did help. And the other anxiety I had right at the beginning, I would say that was my most anxious point, I've touched on it already, is that I didn't have any symptoms. The cramping, cramping that I had before I took the test had sort of eased, and then I didn't have anything of what you would expect. So none of the sickness, none of the food aversion, yada yada yada. So I had a period of a week or so, 2 weeks, maybe even longer, where I didn't have any symptoms. I was like, is this normal? Like, have I done something wrong? And the anxiety really built up at that point, to which it was getting a little bit much for me. But as I said, that then was alleviated at the 8-week appointment, but I had also then started to get that tiredness. My sense of smell increased. It's a weird one, I know, and that kind of stuff. So weirdly feeling a bit rubbish, made me feel better that something was actually happening. Because I did spend a lot of first trimester just sort of going, are you in there? Are you okay in there? Is everything fine? Are we working? Is it good? So yeah, the anxiety is difficult. I'm not sure, I mean, you'd have to ask Pete. I'm imagining that it probably is worse for a woman because you're the one carrying it, you're the one that's feeling everything. But I wouldn't want to say that and diminish anybody else's experience and that kind of stuff. And as I said, linked to that is then obviously that there is an element of, I'm trying to think of the right word, loneliness. I don't know, that you haven't shared your news with a wide variety of people. So we, other than the travel agent, I asked Pete if it was alright for me to tell my parents early. So I told my parents the day that we had our 8-week appointment, just because I knew I'd want some support. I'd want someone to know. I needed someone to talk to about it with. Also, I knew that my parents would be super excited by it, not saying that Pete's aren't, but first grandchild and all of that kind of stuff. So I just wanted somebody that I could talk through things with. So that's why I told my parents early, and I did say to Pete, you know, feel free to tell yours and stuff, or tell someone so that you have that support network. But he decided that no, he'd wait for the 12-week scan to do that. So other than us and my parents, nobody else knew for 4 weeks or whatever until we had our scan. And in that we saw a chunk of Pete's family and stuff like that, and obviously I was very tired and having to go for naps and things, so it was quite difficult to not share it. And like I talk to my brother weekly, and he'd be like, oh, what's going on? I'd be like, oh, not a lot. And you're like, oh, I've got such a big thing to tell you, but I can't, because we've decided that we want to make sure that everything is okay before we share that news, which I both agree with and I don't agree with. If I did it again, would I tell people sooner? I mean, I guess in that respect it'd be an entirely different pregnancy because we'd have a child and all of that kind of stuff, so we might need the support in childcare and stuff like that, certainly if I'm having to go for about 60,000 naps in a day. So I don't know whether I'd do it differently, but it can be kind of isolating because you're obviously going through so much, and from what I gather, obviously I've not done it before, second trimester has definitely been vastly easier than the first. I imagine the third comes with its own difficulties because of the size of your stomach and the size of your belly and things like that. So I'm sure that will come with its own trials and tribulations, but that first, certainly between the two that I have experienced or am experiencing, the first is a lot more difficult and probably is where you need more support because it's tough. But then also you don't want to tell 1,000,001 people in case something does unfortunately go not the way you want it, and then you have to share potentially bad news. And I don't know how I would have coped having to tell lots of people the other way. So yeah, that is probably quite a jumbled ramble of my consciousness about first trimester, but I hope that in there's an element of usefulness to it and that you've semi-enjoyed hearing about my experience. If you do have any questions for me, anything that I might not have covered, do put it in the box below and I will reply it when I can. Anybody going through first trimester, I'm with you. It's tough, but it does, in my experience, get easier. And as I said, when we get to a point where I can talk about the second trimester as a whole, I will do so. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe. I know I say this in pretty much every video. They're not all going to be baby related, but that is going to be a large part of the content because obviously it's a large part of our life at the moment. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Bye.